there, and I've seen that it was X. I saw the whole thing. I saw the skeleton. So you have yolk or yellow, which is the egg. Hey guys, so I got home and I was thinking about ABC, and I really wanted to make sure that you guys got absolutely everything. And I realized that I left out something that's pretty important to me that I want to talk about to you, and that is, how do you introduce the deck? Why do you have these flashcards? So I know some of you have already thought of really good justifications. I mean, it's such an innocent thing that, in my experience, people don't spend too much time. Hey, what do you have that? I literally just got back from a close-up gig. I pulled it out and nobody was like, hey, what is that? What do you have? Like, it's just, nobody asks. It's just something everybody knows. But here's a couple of justifications that I have used in the past to kind of logically introduce them. So, number one justification that you have them, this is typically the one I go with the most often. I say, I was at Walmart a couple of days ago and I saw these flashcards and I just find them so vivid and visually interesting that I just picked them up because I wanted to try something with you. So that's it. Really simple. Saw them at Walmart, thought they were cool. That's it. Second justification, if you have any children in your life, you have kids, nephews, nieces, you work in an environment where there's kids, you could just sort of casually reach into your jacket pocket or something like that. Oh, I guess these were left over from earlier. I was, hanging out with my nephew. You know what? Actually, let's use these. Let's try something. So this is a little bit more of sort of like, oh, even you didn't know they were there. I have used that before. Works perfectly. The third justification is a bit of a variation of something I've heard Richard Osterlin talk about. And it's basically something I call the just because justification. And it does take a little bit more comfort and experience with performance to be able to pull this off. But it's, if you don't overthink it, neither will they. And the reasoning is just, this is what I do. It's funny when we see a magician pull out this big box and put the girl in there, we don't go, why that box? Like, we just accept it. That's what he does. He puts girls into boxes and they disappear. Well, it's the same with mentalism too sometimes. Like, why ESP cards? Just because. Why do you have to write something down for me to tell you what it is? Because that's what I do. People write something down and I connect with that thought. And it's the same with ABC. I don't really know why. You don't need to go too much into detail, but people think of flashcards and I connect with those thoughts just because. That's what I do. Thor doesn't have to explain why he needs his hammer. Green Lantern doesn't have to explain why he needs his ring. It's just what they do. And this is just what you do. The fourth justification is something that Colin McLeod came up with when he saw these. And I think it's really, really clever and very obvious, very sort of easy for people to understand, where you pull them out and you say, kids use these to learn how to read. Well, you can actually also use them to learn how to read minds. And I'd like to show you what I mean, and you just go right into the routine. So you draw that parallel between learning to read and learning to read minds. You can even give an anecdote and say, when I was younger, when I started to learn how to read minds, I used flashcards the same way we use them to learn how to read. So there's a bit of a parallel there. Love it. Thank you, Colin McLeod. You, sir, are a genius. The fifth justification is a variation of what Colin McLeod came up with, and I've been using it recently a lot, and it works really well, and it also just sort of has a very compelling way to get into the routine. And basically I say, these flashcards that kids use to learn how to read? Well, a lot of studies have shown that they facilitate reading because they have these very vivid, relatable images. And I find that people connect with these very easily, and sometimes I can connect with those thoughts. So this one has a bit of like that sort of scientific sort of thing where it's like these are scientifically proven or shown to connect more and make more vivid images, and that's why I use them, because I'm going to try to connect with those vivid images. So there it was, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Those are a couple of justification ideas. I'm sure you guys could think of other ones as well, but give these a shot and then see what you come up with. Okay, so now let's talk about cold reading. This is basically the way you take this from just I know what you chose to I know what's going on in your mind. So first of all, do all the routines require cold reading? I would say yes, but in a different way. Some of these routines you'll notice is one where the spectator is making a choice. They're seeing their options, they're going there, I want that one. This is a great opportunity for cold reading. Why would somebody choose one of these illustrations over another one? Think about that. Literally, that's the best way to cold read this. Think to yourself, why would somebody choose one thing over the other? Now, we're going to go through very soon every single one of these 26 letters, and I'm going to give you some ideas or concepts or directions that I take for each one of these. But I also want to show you a couple of examples of scripts I use and things I say depending on what they chose. So here's a couple of examples from real world performances, and at the bottom of the screen we're going to put what the selection was, and I want you to look at how much sense it makes, because you're getting a great clue here. They're telling you, this appeals to me. So for example, you're about to see one where the girl was thinking of the tub, the bathtub. Why would that appeal to someone? Well, people who like to have that relaxing experience typically tend to be someone that might get overwhelmed with anxiety. So I'm going to test the waters there and try to go down that route and see how that works. And then we're related to relaxation, taking a bit of me time. Introverts often, get overwhelmed by a lot of things, so they need a little bit of relaxation. So it's a very safe path to go when somebody chooses a bath. So always think to yourself, what would compel someone to choose this? And we're going to go through all the letters. I'm going to do that again for you guys. Now, the other thing I want you to think about is this. Some of these routines, they randomly choose something. So they're not saying that's the one I want. They randomly cut somewhere and they look at it. In this case, you can't cold read and say, I feel like you chose this because of this. They didn't make a choice. But what you can do is try to think of what first came into their head when they saw this. For example, when somebody chooses the volcano, for us that's heat within the system, I'll say, okay, when you saw this, it's funny because I felt something before I saw something. Like there's a physical feeling associated to this. What is this? I'm feeling hot. And usually they'll go like, oh my God, how does he know that that's where my mind went? Because it makes sense. So take some time and think to yourself, if I saw these for the first time, what would happen in my mind? And try to feed that back to them. And if they're making a choice, ask yourself, why would I choose that? So here's a couple of really great examples of cold reads, and then we're going to go through every single one of those letters, and I'm going to tell you the path that I like to take when somebody chooses them.
Jordan, as I look at you, I see someone who has a lot of ambition, a lot of big goals. So you're a big thinker, and immediately I feel like you went for something really big. Does that make sense? It's not something that would fit in my hand. It's not something that would fit here. This is something so vast. It also speaks to your curiosity. Are you a very curious person in life? Like you like to understand how things work? Yeah, that totally makes sense. I'm getting something. Focus on this. I'm getting something.
No way. No way. No way.
I'm not even going to look at the rest because I think I'm getting a good feeling here. Liana, you seem to me like sometimes you're the type of person where sometimes anxiety gets to you and you just need a moment to calm down. Does that make sense? You tend to be someone that you trust your friends and your close friends can trust you, but sometimes you get very overwhelmed. Does that make sense? And you only really show the deepest sides of yourself to those people who are really close. You don't let a lot of people in. Sometimes you need to decompress that. I feel like this connects to that. Does this make sense? Is this like a very relaxing concept? Yeah, I am feeling that.
Whoa.
Everything like you described about me was very accurate, like very true. It was like weird. How? Like I want to know.
Kai, I'm going to try to connect with you as a person to try to figure out which of these would have appealed to you. I feel like there's a part of you that likes to have fun, likes to let loose, but there's also a very disciplined, sort of serious side to you that when it's time to be responsible, you can bring that in. Does that make sense to you? Like to where a lot of other people will be like, oh, forget it, we'll think about that later, let's go have fun. But when it's time to get work done or something serious, you're very good at sort of compartmentalizing that and thinking that way. You're a pretty good long-term thinker as well. Amongst your friends, you tend to think about your future a little bit more. Does that make sense? Yeah. Even I think you guys are, brothers? Yeah. Would you say that you focus a little bit more on the future, that you're a little bit more easy breezy, a little bit more easygoing? And I think this relates to that, because I'm getting a concept here of sort of relating to maybe sort of investment or discipline or something like that. You're also an opportunity hunter. If I come to you and I say, I've got this cool opportunity, I get your curiosity. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. I think I'm connecting with this. I could be wrong. It's funny because as you think of this, I'm getting two different images. One is a lot more serious, a lot more elaborate, but one is a little sillier and colorful. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
Yes.
I'm connecting with the colorful one. Was there one in your past, maybe when you were younger?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you haven't seen it in years.
Oh,
you have no idea where it was.
not.
And I was like,
Probably in the trash.
right. That's, and I was even, as I was thinking of it, I was seeing a bit of wear and tear, some damage on it, maybe even like a missing piece. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you haven't seen this thing in years. Maya, I'm also getting a sound from this. Like there's a sound coming through. Does that make sense? I don't know, because here's the thing. This is just some flashcards I grabbed at Walmart. I don't really know what's in there entirely, but this is an idea that I'm getting. But I'll give you a couple of quick tips as to what I say, and the more you do it, the more you're going to learn and get comfortable with that sort of cold reading part. So let's just do this really quick. Acorn, I gotta tell you, this is very rarely selected. If it is, I tend to go for things like people who enjoy the outdoors, maybe hiking, camping. I will also say that it reminds them of something that they did in their youth. Because for me personally, when I was younger, I'd go outside a lot with my family, and this is associated to that. So you can throw that in. The bathtub. This is, you can go for comfort, relaxation, often someone who's introverted, somebody who likes to take a little bit of time for themselves. You can also guess that this person sometimes get overwhelmed easily. That's that. The mug or the coffee. Routine, busy, somebody who's always on the go. Routine, I often say things like, this is part, what you thought of, this is part of your day-to-day life, isn't it? You have a few at home, something in the mug. So yeah, this is, think routine, think somebody who's always on the go. This is another one that's very rarely selected. Why would somebody pick juice? Like they like to hydrate? It's really not something that's very often picked. There's been times when somebody picked this because they were presented like actual drinks, like liquor drinks, because they just saw the image and picked it. So I would go for, fun, maybe childish, it reminds them of their childhood. Just try to think of why somebody would pick juice. It's a very rare thing. Workaholic, often empathetic, because, when you send a letter to someone, often, like birthday cards, wedding cards, somebody who's, either they're thinking of work with this, or they're thinking of like empathy, like love letters or cards or birthday cards. So somebody who connects a lot through words, these are things you can use. This is also a very rare one. I often go for things like, I'll take a guess and say you don't have one or you've never used one, but it's old-fashioned. So old-fashioned people who like, what's the word for it? Not conservative, but like people who like old school things. Nostalgic people who like old movies and old cultures and study. So I often go for things like, you're a nostalgic person. When you see something that reminds you of your childhood, you get very emotional. So these are people who like things in the past. They connect with history, maybe. Gamblers, game players, chance. These are all words you want to use here. Games of chance, games, fun. You like to have a good time. Next we have heat, hill, but what they're seeing is volcano. One of the really great cold reads I love for this is I will typically say, you stopped on this one because you thought the image was really cool, but you don't really have too much of a connection with the real version of this object, do you? And so, because who has a connection to a volcano? Unless they're a geologist or something, there's not going to be much of a connection. I've done this once or twice for Europeans who were thinking of Pompeii, like maybe they visited Pompeii in Italy or something like that. But in most cases, you're going to get a really good hit on that. So you say, you thought this was really cool, but you don't really have too much experience with this in real life. And the only time that's going to be wrong is if you're talking to someone who studies like tectonic plates or something. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. It's usually really great. So go for like the coolness of the image rather than what this means to them. Next, we have the xylophone. This is one of my favorite ones for them to pick. I for instrument, but they're seeing xylophone. The reason I love this is because I will almost always say that this reminds them of their childhood. And they will say yes. And I will say, in fact, I think you had one when you were younger. And they will say yes, very typically. The next thing I'll say is, you have no idea where it is anymore, do you? I don't think anyone has ever said that they know where it is. But I also get a lot of hits by saying that it was either missing a piece, or they lost a piece, or it was damaged. Because we all had that xylophone when we were a kid where we lost one of the sticks, or we chewed up one of the sticks, or that we were missing one of the notes or one of the things. So it's often a really great hit to go, you had one, you don't know where it is. I'm also getting that it was damaged or a piece was missing, and I get like, oh my God, how can you know this? See guys, this is what I'm saying. It's more than just xylophone. Like, connect with it. Have fun with it too. At the end of the day, you're gonna guess what it was, so take those gutsy shots. Next, we have the ring. I barely have to explain this. Romance, connection. Look at their age. If it's someone who seems like they might be engaged or thinking about engagement, look at their finger. Do they have a ring? Were they recently married? But talk about connection. You can also say, you appreciate valuable things. So go with that. boy, again, this is one that comes up so rarely, but if it does come up, I will say something like, it's weird because this is reminding you more of someone than something. And that's just a really great line for this. And I try to typically see if they're thinking of someone they know, because they're probably, by thinking of this, thinking of someone that they know, like their son, a nephew, the kid of a friend of theirs, younger brother. So but I really like the line, this is connecting you more to someone than something. Does this remind you of someone? And it's kind of vague, but it works. Any time that I can remember where someone picked this, they were thinking of Harry Potter's Scar. Keep that in mind. It's not, and some of you watching this also saw this and thought of Harry Potter's Scar. I don't remember, it could have happened. I'm trying right now to remember, but I can't remember a time where somebody thought of this. But I'm not going to start by looking at it going, Harry Potter. I say, this is more of a symbol. It's not something concrete. It's not just a symbol. And I feel like you're thinking, does this connect you to a fictional character? And even if they're not thinking of Harry Potter, when you say it, it'll make sense. You know what I mean? So just to keep in mind, look at the person. If you're looking at like this big, like, beefy guy who goes to the gym and stuff, and he thought maybe he's not thinking of Harry Potter, maybe it's something else. But if they seem the type that they're into like science fiction and they're into that kind of thing, especially, we're magicians, we hang out with people who are dorky. So it's just something that I think will hit the Harry Potter thing on that. This, go for creativity, fun, sense of wonder. These are all themes that will work with this one. Women will often pick this. Look at their own hands, see if they take care of their hands or their nails, because it's really pointing right there to the nail. I know that the word says finger, but if a woman picks this, you can easily talk about manicures and present themselves. Image is important to you. You like to look good, because this is like, it's such a physical thing. Prestige, accomplishment, ritual. I often say this is something that you made a habit of at some point in your life. You watched, this is something that connects you to something that you watched regularly, but you're someone who likes to be appreciated for the things you do. So this is appreciation, glamour, habit. Music, art, they connect with music. That's somebody who picks this, they connect with music. They like music typically. I would even go as far as saying that this connects you to a hobby you've had or an interest that you've dabbled in. They've often played music. People who go for money. So here's a really good one. Disciplined. People who think in terms of money, who connect to money, are very disciplined. They think about long-term thinkers. Usually people who are creatures of habit will think of money. So you could think about, you're someone who when your pattern breaks, you panic a little bit. You're a very good future thinker, and I'm getting a lot of that with this. Nowadays, a lot of people are invested in cryptocurrency, so that might be a reason they would go for something like this. So think of that. This one, typically, I connect more with the weather side of things. So I'll say something like, the moment you thought of this, I felt uncomfortable. Like you're someone who likes to plan, who likes to be covered, and I don't mean covered like covered. I mean like you typically like to, you're a problem solver. Because think about it, an umbrella is a very problem-solving item. You're a problem solver, and but I'm really uncomfortable when I think about this. That's usually the route I go with that. Any animal in here, whether it's this one or we have the horse, animal lovers usually empathy, kindness. I say, this is something that you really find beautiful, majestic. Go with that. Like, again, guys, think to yourself, why would somebody pick an octopus? One of my other favorite ones, yo-yo. Almost always, this person had one as a child. I will always say, you were better with this than most people. Because I think it's a really good guess. Because if someone's going to think of this, they had a connection with this. And even in studio, we had Derek who picked this in one of the performances. I don't know if the performance made the final cut here, but when I said that, he said, no, I don't really feel that. But later on, when he was like, I used to do all these cradles, and I go, well, you were better. You're just also humble. So most people who had a yo-yo practiced with it and could do a couple of cool things that most people couldn't. So it's always a good guess to go, you had one, you played around with it, you could do a couple of interesting things. You were 99% of the time when I say you were better with this than most people, they go, I was. They're proud of their yo-yo skills. Science. So we're looking at the planets now. Science, astronomy, curiosity. People who like to learn things about the way things work will go for this. Ice cream, fun. This reminds you, it's an indulgence, right? So people who, they like to have fun, they have a childish side. This actually reminds you of your childhood. All good guesses. Think of fun people who just like to have a good time. This is a rare one. It doesn't come up very often. When it does, a woman might pick this as and if a woman picks this, I'll go with how she associates this to it's a symbol that makes her feel proud. She associates with this, she connects with this, but it's a rare one. It doesn't come up very often. Here's another one that doesn't come up very often, the skeleton. It usually comes up with people who the type the, what's it like the emo or the goth type person who the dark clothes. Me. Usually I have all my skull rings and my skull T-shirts. So this is typically people who are pretty artistic. You can't really say something like you're an emo. You can't say that. But you could go with artistic, and you're usually drawn to things that are a little obscure or a little bit. You love magic. You say that as a way to reinforce that they love what's going on here. But just that's a good guess, that route. This does come up quite a bit often. And I don't know why people freak out when I say this. I say something like, this connects you to a certain time of day. And it's something where even if sometimes you don't love this time of day, this is connecting me to a meal that you really love. And I don't know why this hits, guys. I feel like most people love breakfast, even if they don't love mornings. And I feel like when you say that to someone, they really feel like, oh my God, he knows me so well. Whereas it's just a good guess. But it just hits. People freak out when I say that. And then we have the horse. Again, animals. Empathy, kindness, connection. This is something you find beautiful, that you connect with. You connect with this more than most people. The line more than most people is a great line in cold reading because it just really makes them feel special. So I love that line. So there you have it, guys. 26 sort of global ideas of the direction I go with these when someone picks this. But you're going to notice you can have so much fun with this and really try to take some guesses and go deep, because if it doesn't hit, you're still going to get that reveal at the end that is going to hit. Now, as I told you earlier, this was originally a trick where I wanted to draw what a person is thinking. I don't know why. I love mentalism effects like that. And the flashcards were just a way to mask the method. So right now, we're going to look at how I draw each of these. I know it's crazy, but maybe some of you need an extra second. Like, oh wait, I wonder how to draw that one. This is just how I draw each of them. I'm going to give you, I'm not an artist at all, so it'll just give you a really good idea of what I draw. And maybe I have one or two tips from having done this a lot. So we're going to look at each letter really quickly. If there's one you're stuck on, you could just pause your video and study it a little closer. So here we go. Here we have A, B, C, and D, super straightforward. So we have the acorn. The bathtub, just a tub with two legs. I put this little spout with the water coming down. I think that's pretty important to signify that that is a bathtub. Then we have the mug, super classic, and the drink, I think, as well, is super classic. These are all very straightforward. Potentially the easiest one in the game is the envelope. I think anyone could draw that. For the feather, just make that bottle like this, and then I just do a line, and then I put these feathery lines on the side. A cube for the gambling, and then I add the dots. And for the volcano, that's what that looks like. The instrument, the xylophone, sometimes I go into as much detail as this, put those little dots, but sometimes I just do 5 diminishing rectangles with the 2 sticks next to it. It gets the point across. The ring, just a ring. Kid, I make a circle. I split. I got to be honest, typically I split it a little bit higher than that. This kid looks like he's got a gigantic forehead. So typically it's more like there, you know what I mean? With the lines like this. And, ooh, look at that, an upside down kid. So typically it looks a little more like that, but you get the point. Really simple. This is a masterful work of art for the L. It's going to take you years of studies. I literally just do the L and then I add a line, that's it. Then we have M for magic. We just do the rectangle, color in the middle, couple of stars there for effect. And then the for nail, I don't put the arrow for nail. That's for us to remember it's nail. For them, they're thinking of finger, so I just do this. if you feel like putting the arrow, you can, but it's really simple to draw a hand. The Oscar, so these two are a little complicated. The Oscar, I just do the head, and I do the shoulders. I stop halfway down. I do the two arms wrapping around, and then I do that little Caesarean crown that it's holding. And then at the bottom, I just do like this Pizza Hut, sort of like this upside down mushroom thing. Now, for the piano, I'm actually going to give you guys a tip here that makes this really easy, because a lot of people are like, how the hell do you draw this? It's actually really easy once you figure it out. So I'm going to give you guys how it is. I'm going to do it upside down. So you make that open-ended rectangle first, like this. Then you're going to make two black rectangles, one next to the other, like this, and fill them in. Then you're going to leave a bit of space, and you're going to do three more over here, like this. Fill those in. Check this out. You guys are going to be like, oh my God, Spidey's a pro at drawing pianos. So now you have this, right? You have the rectangle, then you have 2 and 3. Then you make a line from the center of each rectangle down to the bottom. And finally, you make one line down these here, and you have yourself a piano. Some people try to do it like one by one, each key. That's going to look like a disaster. That is the way pros draw pianos. So we have right there, P for piano. Here's Q, quarter, super simple. Rain, super simple. So the raindrops and an umbrella, I feel like is really easy. For the squid, I do the head first, then I come down and I just do these arms, and I come back and close it up. Toy, easy, just to have that line, circle with a smaller circle in there. I don't feel like any of these need any more explanation. Universe, just make the big ball, put a little ring around it, little ball over here, a couple of stars, you got yourself a universe. For the vanilla, we go back to that the base of the Oscar, but it's upside down. Now it looks like a rectangular mushroom. And then on top of that, you do the stinky emoji. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. You kind of do one of those and 2 lines. Try not to think about that the next time you have an ice cream. This is a shrunken head woman. I realized I ran out of space. But typically I do I start with the body. That's what happened, and I realized I ran out of space. But basically, you just do the body, which is like a long mushroom. You just do across like this. Arm, skirt, arm, 2 little legs. You want the head to be a little bit bigger than this, and then you circle the whole thing. They'll get the point. Skeleton is the one I'm the least proud of in all of these. I think I'm a terrible skeleton drawer, but you make the skull, there's a lot of mushrooms hidden in this. You got that mushroom going again, put a couple of lines for the teeth, 2 circles for the eyes. Then I do the rib cage like this, just all these C's and reverse C's. Then the arms, 2 sticks, legs, 2 sticks. You might want to sometimes add, that. Some people are really good at skeleton pelvic drawings. I'm not, so this is my pelvis, is that rectangle. If they don't know that that's their drawing, there's a problem. Then we have the yoke, which is super easy right there. And the horse is also study this, because it's not difficult. It's just hard to figure it out if you don't know what you're doing. So this extends here to make the cheek. And then there's a line under there, boxy face with a big nose in the corner, the hair going down this way, the ear over here with a bit poking out the front. That is our zebra/horse. So there it is, guys. Drawing 101 from Spidey. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Okay, so now I'm going to leave you guys with some miscellaneous pro tips that are going to help you make this better. And we're going to do a whole section on heckler busting, because if some of you are thinking, well, what if the spectator says they want to shuffle the cards? I have a bunch of really great answers, and one that I love so much that works with this that wouldn't work with a normal deck of cards, where you can literally hand it to them and they could shuffle as much as they want. Something I love to do with this trick very often, almost every time I perform it, before the revelation, when I'm trying to connect with this, there's a line I love to say, and that line is, I go, okay, I'm getting this, or let's say they picked this, the yo-yo. I say, I'm getting that this is something that's associated to fun. I'm having a hard time with figuring out because you know what? I don't know all the different items that are in here. I love that line, because it takes it from being a 1 out of 26 to 1 out of a million. Because if you don't know what the things are that are in here, and it's just a little line, it's a psychological little thing you're throwing in there to really convince them that it could be anything. You don't really know what's in here. I love that line. Another thing to keep in mind is be casual about this. It's not a card trick. Don't start showing off your cardistry. You have some flashcards, you're being casual. The more you can make it look like the flashcards are just a tool for them to get a thought in their heads, the better this is going to play. So be casual with it. Again, no fancy shuffles, fancy cuts. Remember always to try to connect as to why they would choose this, really go in depth. Again, if you just say like, you picked egg, it's not that impressive. Like really try to connect with why and how they're thinking about this. And, I even do things like I say, okay, imagine you're drawing this in their head and I go, stop, did you do this? Or are you seeing this? And almost like I'm getting it bit by bit as opposed to just getting it. So have fun with it, with really the process of it as opposed to just saying what it is. When you're working with this, especially towards the beginning, sometimes you remember your word for something, but you don't remember the word that's written down. And that's perfectly okay. I don't mind if that happens. So let's say here, or you know what, let me do this like in real time. So let's say my spectator has cut, and I've seen this, that's R for rain, I know that. I've completely ignored what's written. It's R for rain. I go, what's after R? QRS. So I know that the next one is squid, but I've forgotten that it's octopus. I mean, this is a really hard one to forget that it's octopus. I think that's one of the ones you'll never forget. So let's go for one that you might. So here I see L, M is next. Okay, this is a good one. So I know it's magic, but I can't specifically remember that it's wand. So it's like magic. What was magic? It was wand. Okay, well, it doesn't matter. Because if you say, I'm getting a feeling here, this relates to, it's something magical. It's something, just that, it's a hit. Especially if you're going to draw the thing. When you draw the thing, it doesn't matter because you're drawing the wand ultimately. But again, anytime we have things here where, so we have universe, TUV. The next one is, I remember vanilla. You're not going to forget ice cream, but let's say you do. You go, I'm getting a taste. It's sweet. It's vanilla. Even if you don't say ice cream, when they show this in everyone's head, that's a success. So eventually, I promise you, after a day or two, you're going to remember all the written words. But don't worry about it if you don't, because with mentalism isn't magic. You don't have to get exactly right. Even if you come close, or if you have the idea, sometimes it's even better. Like to where you miss it. To where purposely, like you get here, N. So the next one is, so let's say Oscar, and you don't remember that it's a word or trophy. You don't remember. You go, I'm connecting with movies, and it's the Oscars. I'm at the Oscars. They'll still freak out because it doesn't matter that you didn't get the written word. Remember that. All right, here's the tip where you guys are going to realize if this idiot can remember this, then I should be totally fine. Here's a confession. I don't know the whole alphabet in order. In other words, if you name a random letter, I may not always know what's after. Like if you say, for example, off the top of my head, P, it takes me a second to know that the one after that is Q. I can't pick it up anywhere. So you may or may not need this tip, but for me, I have little safe havens, little pockets. So for example, if they pick something in the M or N area, I go back to L, because we all know the LMNOP, right? We all as kids rushed LMNOP. So if they pick like M or N or even O, I go LMNO, okay, I'm good now. So if they pick like V, what's after V? I gotta go to TUV, W. So to me, T is safe, L is safe, A, B, C, D is safe, and then usually somewhere at, if they pick like I don't know what's after I have to go like E, F, G, H, I. So don't be scared to like rewind a little to catch your stride. That's the way I do it. So as I mentioned multiple times throughout this video, we purposely put the letters in the same corners as a deck of cards. The reason for that is because if you're going to be doing mind reading, I want you to use this instead of your deck of cards. You're going to find that you get better results, better reactions. It's a more innocent prop. People do not connect this to magic at all, whereas a deck of cards, they're looking for that sleight of hand. But this is just so innocent. It's flashcards, and you're going to get better connections. So anything you do, mentalism-wise, with a deck of cards, do me a favor, try it with this instead. You're going to love the results. You're going to connect more. It's just going to work more. I promise you're going to love it. The other thing is, you are getting 2 packs because we had to print 52, so you're getting 2. I often tell my spectators this is for, memory games, or you mix them up, you lay them out, you flip 2 at a time, you got to find the matching ones. So if you do anything that's like a do as I do type trick, or 2 deck tricks where they have one and you have one, anything like that, you can do it with this. Any mind reading card tricks that you have, you can do it with this. And go nuts, have fun. The stack is a secret weapon, but you could do so much more with these that you normally would do with cards, and I promise you it's going to be more impactful. And Javier behind the camera just reminded me as well that anything you do with a stacked deck, whether it's
Stebbins, or there's a lot of different stack decks out there. You can absolutely, of course, do with this because, you know, we covered a lot of different peaks and a lot of different ways, but there's a lot of great work out there on stack decks. You could still absolutely do it with this, and because it's alphabetical order, it's going to work quicker, faster, and you can add that sort of looking away count to it. So just go nuts, guys. Whatever you have in the mentalism realm with cards, just adapt to this, and I promise you, you're going to love it. So let's talk about deck management and how I personally keep the deck. So we talked about how some of these tricks use bottom to top alphabetical order and how some of them use top to bottom alphabetical order. So what I do is one half that I have is in top to bottom, this one over here, which basically means if you stop me here, I just need to see this next one here, T, to know this is planets. And with this other stack, I know that if you stop me here, I need to know what this one is, X-ray, to know that that one is yolk, egg. So they're in a different order for different tricks. So what I do is I have one of them with the ABC pointing up and the other half with the ABC pointing down. These are facing each other, and that goes in my box like this. So when I'm ready to perform, let's say I want to do the one where they're going to cut, so I need to be in top to bottom order. By taking a quick look, I know that that's this half because it's the ABC is right side up. And now all I have to do is split where the cards are face to face, which is exactly there. And now I'm ready to do that. If I want to do a trick that requires me to have the one where it's bottom to top, which is all the beginning stuff we looked at, I just split there. And I can do that with this because these are the upside down ones. Now, if you are not doing half top to bottom and the other half bottom to top, I would encourage you to go back and forth between the two packets so that you won't end up where one half of your deck is like spick and span, brand new, clean because you've never used it, and the other half is all used up. So I would say still, even if they're in the same order, have one ABC up, one ABC down, and just go back and forth. When you look at your deck, you'll see which half is a little bit more used up. Use the other half. Catch up. That way, your deck will always look like it was used the same amount. That's such a small, like for the perfectionist, such a small tip, but it will help you sort of manage it a little bit better. The other option is if you have any other tricks that are like half decks or packet tricks, you can absolutely, and I sometimes do this, I only keep half in here. So my box will get squashed a little, which I don't think is the worst thing because it kind of looks like you were using this with your kids and stuff. And I only do have half in there, so I have nothing to worry about. I could just take it out and use it. Or you could have, you know, maybe if you have a packet trick or some other like gimmick, you could just throw it in the box. You could do that as well. Totally up to you. Just a couple of tips to keep in mind as to how I personally manage the deck. Hello, friends. Welcome to this troubleshooting tip. So here's the thing about me. I'm a perfectionist and I'm super paranoid. Whenever I do magic and there's something that, you know, has to be counted or something I have to make sure of, I check. Like I double check, triple check, quintuple check. Here's something I do sometimes just before I start to do this, just to make sure that everything's in order. And it's going to look to the spectators totally innocent because when you take out flashcards, you want to make sure you have all 26 letters. So to them, it's just going to look like I'm counting to see if all 26 are there. So what happens is this. Let's say I start at a random location.